Carl Story here. I'm joined by one of the best amateur boxers in the United States today and potentially in the next Olympics, Oshae Jones. Her credentials speak for themselves. Former gold medalist in the 2019 Pan American Games, winner of the 2019 U.S. Olympic boxing trials. Oshae, how are you doing?
I'm doing fine. I'm doing fine. How are you?
I'm doing pretty well. Can't really complain too much. Before we kind of get into things, how are you doing in regards to the current coronavirus pandemic? I'm sure it must have been it's been a slight adjustment for you to say the least.
Yeah. It's been kind of like iffy. It's been kind of good and bad. Good because I can stay home with my family and my loved ones and get closer. Bad because I feel like it kind of put me back like in the boxing game due to the Olympics.
Yeah, and I kind of also want to touch up on that right now. By now we should have known, whether or not you'd be on the Olympic team for the Tokyo Games, as well as pretty much for every other country out there. But obviously, the pandemic has kind of delayed things for quite some time. When you first heard about these delays and postponements, what were your initial thoughts?
Well, at first I was thinking like, I wasn't really taking it serious. Because I was just surprised. Like I'm like, how can this virus be like all over the world? So it was just taking me like as a shock to me. It was a big shock to me, and then it finally hit me when I came home, and we weren't allowed to like leave out or anything. I'm like, oh, this is serious. Like this is for real. So I'm still just like shocked as it's today.
Yeah, I kind of understand how you feel. It's been a very very tough adjustment for everyone. With things kind of moving back for essentially another year as far as the Olympics are concerned. Do you kind of view this, and being and ended up being a blessing in disguise as far as giving you a little bit more time to get better and better prepared for what's ahead, or do you still view this as just kind of another roadblock to en route to your Olympic dreams?
Well, maybe I really don't know, to be honest. But I do always try to look at the positive side of the things. So I was like, maybe this is a sign. Maybe I wasn't ready enough. Maybe God wanted me to be, a little bit more, experienced or learn a certain side. So I was just looking at it like that. So maybe I really don't know though. Maybe.
How have you been able to sort of stay in shape during this pandemic? I know your family have their own gym and everything, but has it been tough trying to kind of work around things a little bit? Then has there been anything that maybe you've had to sort of improvise for the last couple of months just to sort of stay in shape?
Well, not really. I don't think it affected me as much as other people because most people don't have like a home gym. And I have a home gym and I live with my teammates, so they're like my family. So like we never got divided or like separated apart. Just the members of Soul City Boxing Gym, like the out of town members that drive 45 minutes away every day. People like that. But the main people, my brother Otha Jones the third, my father, Otha Jones, and my older brother, Roshan Jones. We've been here every day, so it's just like nothing has ever changed.
I can imagine, having that support from your family, especially one who is so deeply ingrained into boxing. You mentioned, your brother Ota Jones, who's having a great start to his pro career fighting for Matchroom, if I'm not mistaken. It must, mentally, at least being there with your family, who also would help you train and prepare for everything. That must have also been, something good to kind of look forward to while we're all under lockdown. Because not, as you mentioned, not everyone has a home gym to go to, but for you, you kind of essentially, I don't want to say life has been unchanged, but you haven't had to make as big of an adjustment as perhaps some other boxers that are in your position.
True, true. With my family being like as my team, basically, me and my brother would just be laying down one day or just chilling, being lazy, as everyone does or whatever, and one of us would just be like, "Let's go run," and I'm like, "No, like come on, let's go run. We want to be great. Let's go run." So we run, we race, we do stuff that makes do different things that make our workout fun. Like we dance a lot, we get rhythm, we have rhythm classes, we skate, we swim, we do activities to make our workouts not boring, to make it fun, exciting, different.
Yeah, and I'm sure especially finding fun stuff to do, especially during these times, is even more paramount than ever before. Kind of want to circle back to to your amateur career and getting ready for the Olympics. I remember reading up in the after you won the Olympic trials that you kind of had like a bit of a brief interaction with former Olympic gold medalist Sugar Ray Seales. If and you can correct me if I'm wrong on any of this. If essentially, what was that interaction like, and how did it feel? Essentially having a seal of approval from a former Olympic champion like Sugar Ray Seales.
It was kind of shocking to me because I'm like little me. He was telling me good things and stuff like that. And he was just telling me like what he saw in me, and I'm like, you saw that in me? I did that. Like it was just kind of exciting. He let me hold his medal and everything, and we took pictures, and it was just a different experience, but a good one.
Did that kind of
an eye opener, kind of.
did that interaction kind of give you a little bit more motivation, or at least it confirmed your beliefs that you could end up being in his position, where ending up with an Olympic gold medal when it's all said and done?
Yes, it did because I had just won Pan Am's. So after I won Pan Am's, I had went to I won the trials, and I won every fight that I fought 5-0 decision. And then he told me that, so I'm like, oh, this, I got this in the bag. And then the Olympic qualifiers got postponed. I'm like, oh my god, I gotta keep it up. I can't. You feel me? Like when it first got postponed, I was so scared because I don't want to say I was at my peak, but I was on my way there. I was on my way there, and I feel like the COVID-19 kind of, interrupted it a little bit. Like my winning streaks, my motivation, my determination. It was just bad for me. It was that bad for me. But when he told me what he saw in me, it just opened my eyes. Like I was like, I can do this. Everybody has self-doubt. So,
Right.
So it was just like an eye opener for me when I heard that.
When the Olympics got delayed for another year, I know there were a couple of amateur boxers, or at least Olympic hopefuls, that were kind of now starting to be on the fence about whether or not to turn pro. I know Keyshawn Davis was briefly considering perhaps maybe turning pro before he essentially saying he's going to stick with the Olympics and trying to make the Olympic team. Was there a point when you kind of had to sort of make that decision in regards to foregoing the Olympics and just jumping straight into the pros? Or was, sticking to the Olympic dream always the goal, and then, turning pro right now was never even a thought for you?
Yeah, turning pro was never even like a decision for me because I'm a female in the boxing world, and we are not treated as equal as men. Men don't even have to go to the Olympics. They can start boxing without an amateur career and just still take off. Still make more money than a woman that went to the Olympics was a world champion in the amateurs, like all that. So like I feel like women, we have to work 10 times harder. So I knew I had to wait it out. I knew that like my time was coming. I knew I had to wait my turn. I knew what I had to do. So it wasn't even a thought about that. Like it wasn't even a choice for me.
Yeah, and I do agree on a lot of that. I mean, two names that immediately pop out that because of their Olympic success, they were immediately able to jump into the pros and do well, like Clarissa Shields and Katie Taylor, both of them undisputed champions. When you look at, and you bring up a really good point about women's boxing, is that the sport itself, I do feel like women's boxing is starting to get a little bit more notoriety, but it's still far behind from the men's side. Do you feel like there has been at least the process of a tonal shift in regards to how people view women's boxing? Obviously, as I mentioned, Clarissa Shields and Katie Taylor, they're headlining shows, fighting on TV all the time. Do you feel like women's boxing in general is starting to kind of have a noticeable progression?
Yes. Slowly but surely. I would say that slowly but surely, because you still have just like the model boxers who just want to be cute and just want to get in there and really not know how to fight. And then you have the savages who don't care about getting that cut, who don't care about getting knocked down, get back up, and just get that dog out of them. Then that's what people want to see. We want to see more of that, and I feel like people are getting TV time when they shouldn't, because they're connected or they're plugged in and they know somebody that knows somebody that knows somebody, other than somebody who's working really hard, who's having a lot of stoppages and a lot of TKO. I feel like it's not about what you can do. I think it's about who you know when it comes to women's boxing.
You mentioned different styles. Sometimes they're being TV attractive. Some styles of boxing may not be pertinent to exciting fans or people on TV. But when you look at yourself as a boxer, how would you sort of describe, for those who may not be familiar with you?
I really can't describe me, because I never met another female that's kind of like me, So when I say as the pretty boxers, I mean like the boxers who really don't have that much experience, or really not who really don't dig down deep, or like that. What everybody say, fight like a girl, So
Yeah.
it's those. And then there's the savages who's really not attractive, but they just can fight. They just know how to fight. Like, they know how to fight. Hair cut like just like raw and like aggressive. But I'm in the middle. It's like I'm still, I think I'm attractive. I'm still attractive, but then at the same time, I got that other side of me that'll dig down and So like never met another female that's like me. So I don't know. I feel like I'm in the middle of both of those.
Talking briefly about your family, I mentioned, your brother Ota doing well as a pro. What was the kind of the first time for you? Obviously, being exposed to being in a fighting family must be pretty easy for you to kind of make the decision to want to end up being a boxer as well. But what was kind of the moment or the first time where you felt like boxing was the thing that you wanted to do and dedicate your life to?
Well, I figured that out the first me and my little brother Oshae Jones the third, the first time we won nationals. I think it was 20. Well, we won together. It wasn't our first time winning, but we won together. And it was like a great feeling. Like, he fought first. I was in his corner. I was coaching him with my older brother, Oshae Jones, and my father, Oshae Jones the third. He won his fight, and then we reversed, and he came in my corner, and he was coaching me. I'm like, it was just like it was like a feeling that I never felt before. It was like meant to be. It was like, it wasn't forced or nothing. It was just like, I don't know. I can't even describe the feeling. And I'm like, this is what we was made to do. This is in our blood. Like, this is it. This is it right here.
How obviously you mentioned stuff like doing rhythm classes, kind of making the workouts fun for you and for your family and for those training at the Soul City Boxing Gym. But how have you sort of been able to pass the time under quarantine outside of the gym? Anything that you've been watching, or any hobbies that you kind of have finally found time to start doing? Anything in particular?
No, not really. Just I always cooked. So now, like, I have more time on my hands, extra time on my hands. it's kind of bad that I'm cooking because I'm making stuff that I never made before, and it's like it's great. But as a boxer, you don't want to get up there, that big and weight. But yeah, I think it's just on the cooking side. Like I'm cooking breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and snacks. Like I'm just I don't know. Maybe if boxing doesn't work out for me, I could definitely be a chef. I'll tell you that.
I can definitely understand your predicament because I also kind of cook for my household. So during the quarantine, I've had a lot more time to sort of cook, and it is hard to not just end up eating every single thing that's out there in the kitchen.
Right.
Shay, lastly, how can people reach you on social media? How can people find more info about the Soul City Boxing Gym? I know they got a YouTube channel out there that it's fairly active, and people can find more info about you, your family, your teammates, etc.
Yeah, they can follow me on Instagram at Oshae.Jones, OSHAE.JONES. They can follow my boxing gym page on Instagram, Soul City Boxing, and on Twitter also Jones Oshae. So yeah.
Oshae Jones, thank you so much for coming on board. I really wish you the absolute best of luck in chasing your Olympic dreams, and hopefully things settle down soon. And it kind of looks like they are. So hopefully good news from here on out. And again, wish you the absolute best of luck in your career, and hopefully you do manage to make it to the Olympics.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it so much.